So we're here at Swallows Racing. We're going to have a look around the Meguiars Dale versus Tom builders, the Jaguar. We're going to take a look around some of the stuff that Swallows Racing do.
So right, we'll show you some of the details on the car. So Dale's idea with the S-Type, it's quite a classic style modern car anyway, so he was always of the opinion that he wanted to go down the lines of the period 60s Mark II race car. So quite a lot of design cues on this car are from that. So for example, I think the most kind of iconic from that is the original Dunlop look wheels. They would originally in period been sort of a 15-inch, something along those lines. We've now gone to a 19-inch wheel and obviously gone a lot wider and as big as we can get. Now, I think for me the best things on the car are the subtle details. I was just showing Nick some of these, like obviously on the S-Types, normally they have sort of parking sensors on the front. All of these have been removed and smoothed as much as possible. The rear arches, etc., to make the wheels fit, we had to do quite a lot of, or Motorworks who did the paint had to do a fair bit of work on that. Now, the S-Type originally had a square rear end basically, and obviously with the original Mark IIs, etc., they would have had like a smooth Coombs arch, so they was always wanted to stick to as close as that as possible. So the guys at Motorworks actually took the front wings and modified them to the rear quarters. So looking down the car, you can see that it's actually got quite a good staggered offset now. So they essentially cut this out because we wanted to keep it as OEM as possible and as subtle as possible. So another one of those points they went to a lot of effort to remove basically the rear door handle, and that was essentially using the line off that driver's wing to remove that. So that keeps that original sort of period look going down the car, if that makes sense.
Tom, how wide are the rear wheels?
So I believe they are a 10J, so they are quite a wide rear wheel. So that caused quite a few issues getting the car set up properly, and the guys at Motorworks pretty much had to deal with that to make it fit and look right. So that was a little bit entertaining, but we've obviously got fully adjustable Bilstein dampers, so we can change the ride height to whatever we need to, and they did an absolutely amazing job on that, and we can adjust the ride height accordingly. We did spend a fair bit of time trying to get it right before it went to the paint, so to get as much arch travel as possible, and then they made them fit basically. So I think they've done an absolutely brilliant job.
Yeah, the line is absolutely perfect, isn't it? The wheel, arch, tyre, it sits so well.
Yeah, this is it, and I think Dale was so keen to keep it looking as OEM as possible, but very subtle details, and I think that they've absolutely nailed it, to be honest, because it's only when you compare it to another S-Type you realise how much wider, how much lower it actually is, and I think that's always a good sign of a good build, really. And it's the same with the rear bumper as well. They smoothed all the parking sensors on those, so they've completely gone. There's loads of small touches going around it, but you only really notice when you compare it to one of those. On the back of the S-Type, normally they have a spoiler that's on here. Basically a lip runs all the way across, but obviously a period car wouldn't have had a spoiler or an excessive trim of any. They normally keep it really smooth and sleek, so same with that. These were all drilled, welded, fabricated. There's no filler in any of that. And then it was painted obviously by Motorworks.
I think that's the sign of a really, really, really well modified car, is that there's so many details that you don't know unless you put the car as it was when you originally got it. When it's been executed as well as this has. I mean, the back doors are an example of that, aren't they? You first see the car and you just think it looks so perfect that it must have come like that out of the factory. But it's only when you start looking at cars outside that are stock that you realise the sheer amount of work that must have gone in to delete that rear handle, keep the swage line, and just keep it just looking classic, and then the paint on top of that just it makes it look amazing.
Keeping that period look is what the build cue's been the whole time, and he's been really strict to that, to be honest. There was no, if any deviated, it'd be like, no, we need to keep it looking like it would have done in period. And as I said earlier, the S-Type is a classic looking car, but there is a lot of modern touches on it. There is, I mean, ultimately it is a very high performing car. It's not just for show. As I said, it's got the Bilstein dampers, obviously nipped with the TAROX. We've got the F2000 all round, but it's got Brembo calipers on it, so it's got quite a good setup, and we've just made the best of what's already there on that front. So it is a very capable car, and I think the biggest modification that we've carried out ourselves is the manual conversion. So as far as we're aware, it is the only manual supercharged S-Type built. So that's its real kind of unique.
Can we have a look inside
Yeah,
the car?
sure.
It looks like an absolute full race car spec in there.
Yeah, so Cage Laser engineering are actually quite local to us, and the same as we were discussing with some of the products we've had from you, there wasn't anything available off the shelf, so me, Dale and Patch took the car over to them, and they fabricated the cage in the car there and then, so it's completely bespoke. Obviously, Cobra built us some seats. They've got all the Meguiars logo on there, etc. But we have kept the original dashboard, etc., to go with the kind of original design cue of the 60s race cars. Again, with anything that was touring car based, they had to remain the original dash. So we've kept that in there. We have done a couple of changes. Obviously, you can see that it's now got the manual shifter in there. Originally, it would have had an auto, and JVC supplied us a head unit to display in there. So we have got a couple of creature comforts, even though it is a more track focused build, if that makes sense.
But it'll be able to the car will be used on the road.
Yeah, exactly. So Dale and Meguiars plans are going to take it to the shows when we're obviously able to. But yeah, it's fully road legal, and it can obviously be used on track as well.
Probably got the best paint job of any track car that's around.
Yeah, I'm not sure how long the front bumper is going to stay as clean as it is when it does start getting some track use. But yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, a lot of our race builds aren't as nice on the bodywork as what this is.
The execution is not what you normally see on a track car.
No, exactly that.
We're going to just have a little focus on the brake setup that we did. So the great thing with the S-Type R is that it came originally with quite a hefty 4-piston caliper. So that didn't really need much changing. What we had to do is go through the system and improve what was already there. So get a good set of brake pads in there. We use our Corsa, which are good for hard road driving and track use, which is the purpose of this car, and our heat-treated high carbon F2000 discs. 355mm setup, so plenty of good stopping power out of the from the OE system. It just really needed refining, improving, and allowing Dale to be able to push on the track. The cars will be a little bit lighter than it was stock, so we shouldn't see any overheating problems, anything from the stock system. I think there's plenty in there now with the upgraded pads and discs to allow him to have some fun on the track.
It is still the 4.2 supercharged V8 that would have been in there from factory, but obviously the biggest modification was the manual transmission, but it is also running standalone management as well. So that was something that we've been working on for quite a long time, to get an actual the early ECUs on these aren't tunable basically.
Yeah.
So we've actually fitted a max fully standalone, which is actually working with the original engine ECU and all the internal modules of the car.
It will still work with some of the control modules.
Exactly that. So we can now take a standard S-Type and plug in a max ECU with a fly loop, and everything will work and run normally. All the CAN network, everything. So
sometimes that's the big problem with running standalone, especially with a car that's still got certain comforts, is that it kind of it'll tell you the revs, but you know that's kind of it'll do all the engine stuff, but it won't do any of the module stuff, really. And
no, getting that integration. I mean, if there's, as you were saying earlier, with sort of modifying the Audi VW, there's such a huge market for that. But for us to, I mean, this was like 6 to 8 months work for us to get that ECU to communicate with everything. Obviously, it's not day in, day out, but there's a lot of modern technology in this car. It was 2003, but there was a lot of new tech in it, so it was a bit of a challenge, but it is all in there. So we can, I mean, it's got switchable mapping, it's app controlled from your phone, it's got quite a lot of features.
It's even the little things, isn't it? Because it's not, it's really well walking the line between a race car and a road car.
That's it,
and it's still got the original servo master cylinder, so you're trying to have it to, you've got to run that balance, haven't you? Whereas if you're running a full race car, you'd put a pedal box in and everything would just be in the bin, but it's got that.
No, it's still a lot of
a lot of the road car parts, isn't
definitely, it? And making the best of those as well. So
this intake looks
Piper Cross made a custom filter for that, and this was fabricated by us. It's actually a titanium intake as well. It was just a bit of a showpiece, really, more than anything. But and we've also modified the supercharger pulley as well. So we've got a smaller, really common road performance package we do is the 6% upper supercharger pulley. And it was really interesting because when we converted to the manual gearbox, we actually gained 50 horsepower to the rear wheels. Wow. Whereas obviously normally that'd be lost through the transmission. So before we even started, we were actually seeing 50 horsepower more. And like I said, we are actually seeing 500 horsepower out of this now. So it's quite an impressive, very subtle performance-based car, really.
And just poking through here, you can just see the dials on the Bilstein.
We've got two-way adjustable Bilsteins, bump and rebound on the adjusters there. So, like I said, we can dial it in and around what circuit we're at, etc. And IBAC's supplied a bespoke set of springs for the car as well. Wow. And same with the Bilstein, as we did with you. This is something that hasn't been done before. It was a fully bespoke setup for this car, one-off basically. And all the suspension bushes as well, we've solid mounted some of the subframe, and Powerflex supplied us a kit to do all the other bushing on the car as well.
Thanks for joining us today at Swallows. I hope you enjoyed this video. For more videos, dealer visits and technical videos, subscribe to the TAROX Brakes YouTube channel.